Welcome back to another episode of Susie Reads. For the next few weeks, we're going to do several special episodes of my favorite Halloween book called Witches, Ghosts and Goblins by Ruth Ann Long. This is a book that my mom and dad used to read to me when I was a kid. And then I read it to my kids. And now I'm going to read it to you. So every night we'll read another chapter. Okay? Have you ever imagined what it would be like to fly on a broomstick or go to the land of the goblins or maybe even the land of giants? Well, this is Miranda, and she is a good witch, and she visits Polly and Oliver Hannon, and they are going to go on an adventure with her. Shall we find out what happens? Okay. Let's get started. Chapter 1, A Midnight Visitor. This is the Hannon's house. Polly and Oliver Hannon live here with their parents. They like the big yard for playing games. They like the backyard and apple trees for climbing. The attic in the Hannon's house is wonderful for rainy days and for playing all sorts of pretend games. Like all old houses, the Hannon place creaks and groans when the wind is high. What's more, says Mr. Hannon, something's always in need of repair. However, it's a comfortable house, and Polly and Oliver like it here. Miranda the witch and her cat Cactus first saw the Hannon house when they flew over it one Halloween. I like that house, Miranda says. It looks like a place that would haunt well. I like it too, Cactus replied. I'll bet there are hundreds of mice around and wonderful fireplaces to curl up in front of. I'd like to retire there. Years later, when Cactus disappeared, Miranda remembered the cat's remark, and so she came searching. Chapter 2, A Midnight Visitor. Polly Hannon was sound asleep when all of a sudden a most peculiar sound awoke her. She opened her eyes and thought about it. It was a large sound. It was an above her head sound. It was a thumping sound. Was it possible that something or someone had landed on top of the house? Polly's room was bright with moonlight, brighter than she'd ever seen it before. The window was open a bit to let in fresh air, and the curtains fluttered whitely in the slight breeze. Everything looked the way it should. I must have been dreaming, said Polly to herself. She pulled the covers up closer to her roundly pointed chin and closed her eyes. It was then she heard the roof shingles creak and squeak and squeak and creak. Someone was walking on the roof. The footsteps started near the chimney. Polly listened as they creaked and squeaked across the roof directly above her head. They stopped then, as though whoever belonged to the footsteps couldn't decide which way to go. I think, Polly whispered to herself, it's time that I should wake up Oliver. Oliver, Polly's brother, slept in his own room across the hall. He was 1 year younger than his sister, which made him almost 8. Most of the time, Polly was quite fond of him. In the moonlight, Polly tiptoed to her bedroom door. For a minute, she stopped and listened for more creaking and squeaking, but there was nothing but silence overhead. Whatever or whoever had landed on the roof still didn't know which way to go. Polly shivered a little and reached for the doorknob. Just as she turned it, it moved in her hand. Someone was turning it from the other side. Oh, Polly said. She took a step backward and stood quite still. It kept turning, and the door clicked open. Slowly, it swung in towards Polly. She wanted to call for Oliver, but all at once she couldn't find her voice. The blackness of the hallway disappeared as the moonlight found its way through the open door. And there stood Oliver. He closed the door behind him very gently for Oliver. "Did you hear that thump on the footsteps?" He pointed towards the roof. Polly nodded. Then she put her finger to her lips. The footsteps had started again. The creaking and the squeaking grew louder. Then there was a soft thud, and something landed on the small balcony outside Polly's window. The curtains puffed out as if by magic, and there, peering through the window, was a most remarkable witch. Her dress and cape were black, but on them several brightly colored patches were scattered here and there. She wore a peaked hat, rather battered. 3 bright orange flowers flopped on the brim, and a beautiful green feather waved grandly from the top of the tip. Around her rather large middle was a bright red sash, and from it appeared to be a 2-way radio. Her broomstick, which she held in her hand, seemed to glow in the moonlight. She bent down and called to Polly and Oliver through the partly opened window. "I can raise the window with magic, but it would be much nicer if you would open it wider and invite me to come inside." Oliver raised the window. "Won't you please come inside?" asked Polly politely. The witch leaned her broomstick against the railing of the balcony and glided gracefully over the window ledge. For such a plump witch, she was quite nimble. "Well," she said, "where is she?" "She who?" asked Oliver. The witch frowned. "My crystal ball told me she was here, so there is no use hiding her. If you'll just tell us who she is, maybe we can help," Polly said. The witch stamped her foot. Since she wore tennis shoes, it didn't make much noise, but the children could see that she was losing her temper. "She is Cactus, of course," the witch said. "The best black cat a witch ever had. I must have her back now." "But we don't have her," Polly said. "We don't have any cats at all." "Not even a kitten," said Oliver. "You've hidden her," the witch pointed an accusing finger at the children. From the owl-shaped bag that hung from her red sash around her waist, she pulled out a crystal ball. She held it high above her head. It glistened in the moonlight. Crystal ball, where is Cactus hidden? In the bedroom, in the hall, do as you are bidden." Everyone waited, but absolutely nothing happened. The crystal ball continued to shine in the moonlight, clear as a teardrop. "Bother!" exclaimed the witch. "It's not working again. I've a mind to take it back." Then, without warning, she darted about the room, searching dark corners. She peered into Polly's closet. She looked under chairs and under the bed. Finally, quite out of breath, she plopped down in the middle of the floor, dabbed at her eyes with a beautiful purple handkerchief. "Dear, dear," she cried, "what am I to do? Cat gone, crystal ball out of order. Dreadful, simply dreadful." "I do wish we could help you," said Polly. The witch brightened. "Of course you can help," she said. "You can come with me and look for Cactus. I could certainly use 2 pairs of bright eyes. I really think," she said half to herself, "that I need glasses." "But we don't even know you," said Oliver. "Our parents won't let us go anywhere with a stranger." "First," said the witch, "allow me to introduce myself. I was rude not to do so before, but I was worried about Cactus." She handed the children a beautifully printed card which read, "Miranda Witch, best witch in the business. Worthwhile witching done anytime, any place, anywhere. Good spells only, happy charms, pleasant magic." "I wasn't good at being a bad witch," Miranda explained. "So I became a good witch. It's much more fun. For the first time, she smiled at Polly and Oliver. There were a few teeth missing, but the smile was quite pleasant. We'll hunt for cactus in places you've never been before, Miranda said. Where goblins live, in the caves of the elves, we may even go to Ghost Valley. The children looked at each other. Maybe, said Polly, if you were to ask our folks. Never in a million years, said Oliver. They don't even believe in witches. Begging your pardon, Miss Miranda. I have a lovely dreamy spell I can cast on your parents, said Miranda. They'll never know you're away. Oliver shook his head. I don't think we had better. You can ride with me on my broomstick, Miranda said. I'll teach you both to fly. Where will we go? Asked Oliver. Will we fly overseas? Overseas, over stars, over mountaintops, said Miranda. What country do you live in? Well, said Miranda, I sort of live between countries. Even good witches aren't welcome in most places, you know. People are so superstitious and quite often afraid of what they don't understand. She gave Polly and Oliver a long, searching look. You will come with me then and help me look for Cactus? The children nodded. Splendid! She jumped up from the chair and twirled around 3 times. My, she said, that always makes me dizzy. Then why do you do it? Asked Oliver. I was just casting my dreamy spell on your parents, said Miranda. Now that I've taken care of that, let's be off and on our travels. She pressed a button on the special radio that hung around her neck. Must get my flight instructions. These days, with all the planes in the air and satellites orbiting, not to mention flying saucers flitting thither and yon, there's a lot of traffic in the sky. The radio crackled with static, and Miranda spoke into the small mouthpiece. Miranda Witch, ready for takeoff from Harmon's destination home, standing by for instructions. Level off to 1,500 feet and proceed in a witcherly direction, said the voice. Roger, Miranda replied. Miranda, answered the voice. The 3 of them crawled over the window ledge and onto the balcony. Get on behind me, Miranda said to Oliver. Put your arms around my waist. But Oliver's arms wouldn't go around Miranda's waist. Bother, said Miranda. I must lose some weight. Hold on to my sash then. Polly, you're next. Hold on to Oliver. The balcony railing made a splendid launching pad. They zoomed high into the sky. Up, up through the soft clouds they traveled, past big stars and small stars. The air was clean and cool and filled with the faint scent of fireworks. Hold tight, Miranda called over her shoulder. We'll be home in no time at all. What's your home like? Asked Polly. You'll see, answered Miranda. And that is the end of chapter 1 of Witches, Ghosts, and Goblins. See you next time to find out what Miranda's house is like.